Hey everyone, you're listening to Angel Nears the podcast. Angel Nears is a Silicon Valley community for startup builders where experienced operators share their firsthand knowledge on how to build and scale startups. I'm your host, Oleg Kujakov, and our guest today is Nicolai Baldin. He's the co-founder and CEO at Synthesized, a startup built by machine learning researchers from the University of Cambridge. Today, we're going to talk about Nicolai's experiences of facing and overcoming challenges as a first-time founder. But before we get to that, Nicolai, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, real excited to talk today. To get us started, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So my background is, essentially quite technical. I did my PhD at Cambridge in machine learning and statistics, spent some time at Stanford in the US in the stats department there as well. And I used to work for a hedge fund from New York before we started the company with my co-founder about 3 years ago.
And can you tell us what inspired you to start a company?
That's a great question. I'd been working in machine learning and statistics for the last 8 years and have collaborated with the biggest financial institutions in the US and healthcare institutions in the UK as well. And I was actually working on some sophisticated deep learning methods in early 2011, building recurrent neural networks with CPUs and Newton methods before GPUs and stochastic gradient descent became the thing. And while I was working on some of the interesting areas in ML, I became frustrated by the difficulty of obtaining quality datasets to compliance barriers and realize how massive the gap is between what the scientific community has developed and what it actually delivered to the rest of the world, mostly because of lack of infrastructure and communication with data. So I end up spending maybe like 50% of my time on trying to figure out how I can get access to the right datasets and how I can use them in ML development and testing. And that's how I guess the idea for Synthesize was born about 3 years ago.
Can you tell me more about how you saw a deficiency in what was being sort of advertised and what was being delivered? I imagine you were working with a lot of these tools and algorithms really closely, so you probably have a deeper understanding than I do, certainly.
We've seen lots of tools around, I guess, automating and helping automate some of the ML development cycles. However, the problem of data ops and essentially data infrastructure hasn't been actually looked into by many companies yet. And when you go into, say, a big company, a healthcare institution, or financial services company, you immediately think about, okay, how I'm gonna essentially solve a given problem, and I need to think about different models. I need to think about like different tests, etc. However, you end up spending most of the time initially on trying to get access to the right data sets, trying to prepare them, trying to provision them to you for a given task. And I really didn't see any solution I was comfortable with. And I think still many companies actually use manual processes to essentially provision and prepare datasets for ML development and testing purposes.
On your website, it says that Synthesized is on a mission to empower data scientists with the highest quality data for development and testing purposes. Can you tell me why is there a need out there in the market for this, and what are you trying to do that's different from your competitors?
That's a great question. So, what typically happens is that data scientists and ML engineers typically spend more than 50% of their time on essentially trying to get access on prepared data sets. Whereas the time is very expensive. And what we try to do is really make some of the most expensive resources in the company more efficient. And the other problem we saw is that also, maybe like 60 to 70% of data internally within the enterprise is actually underutilized. So you don't really know how much value is in there because people haven't really thought about, okay, how are we going to measure value of the data and how we can unlock it again for development purposes and testing. I know it's quite fascinating that even if you use some sophisticated ML or data science sort of engine or model, right? So you're still not really sure like whether you're utilizing your data sets to its full potentials, and you still need to work on making sure that all the data sets are provisioned, prepared, and really kind of at the stage whereby they can be used to their full potential. And that's the problem we saw, and it hasn't been addressed yet. So we've seen this kind of new emergent trend, which is data as a service. So it's really getting more attention right now, but about 3 years ago it was very little. So there was like famous notion, which is okay, software is becoming as a service, right? It's eating the world. So right now, I think we are in the stage where kind of data is becoming as a service essentially, and data is eating the world. And this is the space we are in right now.
Let's dive into that a little bit more because it's such an interesting topic that keeps coming up of like data needs to be clean, more clean data. As I understand it, we measure things all the time as humans. We have no shortage of ways to measure things. I can't imagine that we don't have enough data. But can you explain the challenge more of taking the data that we have and the way that we measure it and transforming that into clean data that we want to work with? Why is that so challenging?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, like I like to pose it as a question, which is okay, you have say like a data set about some transactional history in a bank or maybe some electronic health records in a healthcare company. And the question is, okay, you have say X rows and Y columns. But what if say I remove 20% of rows in this data set? Does it mean that the value of the data set is going to be 20% lower? And the answer is typically, well, I mean, we don't know, right? So we don't really know how much value in a given subsample of my data and how it's going to impact an ML model or essentially a testing task. And this uncertainty about the quality, but in a way, high dimensional quality of your data set hasn't been addressed yet. And this is what we are doing right now. And again, like this is quite fascinating, right? So like, and what we're seeing is that you have so much abundance of data and it's underutilized because most of it is actually you don't really know how to measure. You don't really know how to measure the value of the data in terms of like the prediction performance, in terms of testing performance, in terms of its power on different predictive analytics. And this is where we help companies at the moment as well.
So I'm going to do my best to dumb that down really quick. I think what you're saying is that the challenge of understanding your data, understanding where the value comes from is it's subjective and we don't really know until after the model is finished like what kind of effect it's had. Like you mentioned, you could take out a subset from your data. So say you were flipping a coin 10 times, you got 50 or 5 heads, 5 tails. If you were to take out 1 heads, 1 tails, then your predictive model for what the result of flipping a coin would be wouldn't change at all. You've actually removed data, but the predictive model hasn't changed. Or you could pull out a different subset of data, and then that predictive model would change. Where does this kind of lack of understanding come from when it comes to these kind of questions? Where's the gap in knowledge?
I think that's a great question. It might, yeah, to be honest, yeah, I don't know, but it might have been driven by sales and marketing resources from big corporates, emphasizing that data quality is essentially like the number of missing elements in data, or maybe the number of outliers, or maybe some skewness in distributions, which is great, right? And that makes sense. However, so there is much more than that, right? Even if you remove some of the, well, somehow fill some of the missing elements, the value of your data might not really change because maybe some predictive task is independent of that sort of missing pattern, and that hasn't been measured, and that hasn't been really I would say promoted and marketed yet. And this is where we kind of play with synthesized at the moment.
I guess the challenge that you have latched onto is not the analysis of the data itself. It's more of going from measuring data to what are we feeding into the algorithm, right? So can you tell me more about what you're trying to do at Synthesized and a little bit more about the product and the solution?
So the product we've built is the so-called impossible digital sandbox with data clean rooms to again empower any ML model or data science task. And the vision of the company is to what we want is to really democratize access to valuable data sets and essentially enable like smaller companies operate as efficiently as big corporates. And in terms of like the product itself, right? So it sits between any data source, any database, and connects to any data science or mail pipe, essentially tools such as Data Robot, H2O, and we automate all the stages of data preparation and provisioning between a database and those ML development tools.
Can you dive in and explain what's the impossible part?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I would say like the entire architecture, it consists of 3 pieces. So we have the foundation, which is infrastructure layer. So we have an AI core and we have a learning component of the platform as well. And infrastructure layer is is difficult but possible, and many companies have indeed started investigating different digital sandboxes architectures. But the AI core, which really empowers the process of data sharing and data preparation, hasn't been done yet. And this is one of our key exciting features behind the product, and why it kind of allows our customers and our partners to operate 10x more efficient compared to the alternative solutions.
Did we cover everything that we wanted to cover about the company currently?
Yeah, I guess we started the company with a belief that, hey, I mean, like many big corporates have a rather unfair advantage in terms of like how much data they have. And again, like unlike smaller companies don't really have that, and we really want to help them compete with the bigger guys by having like better processes and better preparation and provisioning tools. But there's like the workflow, like yeah, I can maybe like touch on that as well. Like so in terms of the user journey, right? So like essentially we want all data scientists, ML engineers, and test engineers just have a very clear access to like just data projects. And those data projects are not just data sets, but those are essentially AI-driven projects, which essentially give you quite a bit of analytics, insights about the data sets, provided with monitoring capabilities, some AI features which allow you to play with this data set, make it more agile, make it more useful and efficient for a given task. But the platform is like very simple, right? So in the sense that, okay, you have these data projects and you don't really need to go to, say, database and get some permissions, try to write SQL queries. It's already done with the platform, right? So you can just, like start your task immediately, as opposed to, like going through lots of manual processes of getting access to some kind of data sets and thinking about, okay, how you can essentially use them. All of that work has already been done on the platform.
Awesome. So a little bit more of what I'm used to from college of open up a Python developing environment, import a data set, import a library, and then start hacking away at something.
Exactly. But imagine that in a big corporate, it's actually not that simple. And in a big corporate, you again like have to spend maybe like weeks to again like get permissions, get access keys, think about the SQL queries, get data catalog, all of that again like just simply before you can start a data science project. And we believe that it's well doesn't really make sense, and we really kind of trying to improve the process and to make sure that you can just essentially automate in a simple way, similar to the one you just explained in a college.
I think the idea makes a lot of sense. How did you evaluate your startup idea before you dove in and decided to start a company?
We started with the vision, and we really believe that that's inevitable, and we really kind of saw it coming, so we really wanted to work on that. So we didn't really spend too much time initially on the idea validation, so we just like started building out of curiosity. And I think that's what gave us this kind of unfair advantage, in the sense that our AI core is much more developed compared to any sort of alternative solutions right now. Well, simply because again, like we were super passionate about solving this problem and making the product live, making it ready for the data scientists, ML engineers, and test engineers.
So can you tell me more about that, like getting your product, your minimum viable product, how you went from maybe building something yourself to deciding this is actually something with legs, this is something that I want to commit to 100% of the time. Can you just take me through how that happened?
I think, like I like to think about this in terms of product risk factors. So initially we kind of try to be, like a little bit pragmatic, and maybe, like, again, like maybe because my background is statistics, right? And in statistics, you always think about risks and you always think about losses. So I really kind of wanted to write down all the possible risks which this idea may have, and really work in the direction of eliminating those risks step by step. And some of them, I can just mention is that again, the product has to be defensible, right? So there is the risk that the product can be easily replicated by someone else. Then the risk is the product roadmap sensible? That is, the risk is that the product is not feasible to build, right? And is it a new category or is it existing category? So how much market education we will need to do, and is the market ready again like for this product, or there is a timing risk as well. And we really try to think about this kind of risks at the beginning, and work in the direction to mitigate them. And typically, like again, like as a statistician, you assign probabilities to these risks happening. It's normally gauged based on some previous experience working with these things, and maybe in an adjacent sector. And that's what we kind of did for us, and really kind of try to eliminate the most probable risk from the beginning. And I guess, like we were quite pragmatic, so we knew that where we need to get to before we ran out of, I guess, like any sort of cash savings, any sort of energy reserves. And so we kind of feel quite clear that okay, hey, we need to basically raise capital, and this is why we need to get this product to, and yeah, so really work in that direction. So I think we didn't really have the goal to achieve product market fit. So as I mentioned, right, so I don't think we still there. So we're still like finalizing some of the like hypotheses. But yeah, definitely in a much comfortable position compared to the previous state before the fundraise. But I think like what really kept us driving was that our understanding of how valuable this product is going to become, and really working in that direction. And like people like to say, hey, I mean, like you have to follow lean, you have to iterate fast, etc., etc. I would say, like one of the main disadvantages of lean is that you sometimes become reactive. You really kind of, by iterating the idea with multiple customers, you may be easily distracted from your vision. And we really try to protect ourselves from too much noise which is out there, and really follow our vision in terms of like building, getting the product out there, making it live, making it useful for data scientists and ML engineers.
Yeah, actually, really interesting. Sort of one of the core tenets of agile methodology is that you do start with a vision, but then that vision is kind of constantly changing based on feedback and what you hear. But it sounds like you guys are taking a counterintuitive, kind of against the grain approach, and it's really
Mm.
important to you to maintain that vision, build towards that.
Yeah, that's fascinating actually. So like sometimes when working with enterprise clients, you get this list of different features they would like you to deliver. And the mistake we've seen people make is that essentially you just like say, hey, we're going to deliver these features, say maybe in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, doesn't really matter. But you don't really try to kind of challenge the status quo, and you don't really think about the fact that apart from your company, all those requests, feature requests, have been sent to maybe five of your competitors. And a better approach to this would be, hey, I mean, like we believe that 40% of these features don't really make sense for your company, and you should really replace them with 50% of with these features. Well, not 50%, but yeah, with different features to essentially. And we believe that this is how your company should develop. Again, as opposed to just following the what customers ask you to do. And really, like following the vision helps you to keep everyone aligned in the team as well. That okay, hey, like we have the vision, and yeah, we are pursuing it, as opposed to just essentially ending up being a consultancy sort of shop, trying to serve every sort of like every customer approaches you.
Yeah, it's an approach of negotiation instead of I'm here to serve you, the customer. Customer's always right. It's like, well, what makes sense here? That's really interesting, but I actually want to go back a bit and understand better the timeline of how things came to be. So, can you tell me some dates and like how long you spent before you decided to launch a viable product, and then when did you start looking for funding? When did you even have the idea? Like, can you just tell me the timeline?
As a statistician, so we like benchmarks. I would say from the moment we got all the founders together to the moment we raised the first amount of money, that was about 6 months, and
Hmm.
that was about $700,000. And then it took us maybe 12 or 18 months more to raise a subsequent round of $2.8 million. And in terms of the product timeline, I guess when we raised that pre-seed round, we were kind of in the stage where we had the SDK, we had the API, but we didn't really have the kind of, yeah, I would say unified solution. And when we raised the proper seed round of $2.8 million, and that was 4 months ago, we already had this kind of very very nicely looking unified product, and already had quite a lot of traction and validation with the market.
So next, you mentioned that you co-founded the company. Can you tell me about your partners?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm a very strong proponent of the theory that a co-founder is meant to be someone you have already known for at least maybe for at least a year. And ideally, you should have gone through difficult times together and persevered together. Not only this can be incorporated into story you'll tell to VCs and partners, but also to really help with dealing with the day-to-day work as you grow the business. And Dennis and I, so Dennis is my co-founder and CTO, we've known each other for the last 10 years and really seen each other's successes and failures, and seen lots of stuff. And before we started, okay, like we decided, yeah, we want to start this company together. And that happened again, like maybe two or 3 years ago. But yeah, I believe, to be honest, I mean, so with the co-founders is yeah, it's a very good topic. And right now, again, like many of my friends ask me, like, okay, how do I pick a co-founder, right? And I like to tell a story, which is okay. Like initially, Dennis and I had three different people, which were meant to grow into the so-called head of research. Well, none of them actually stayed in the company, and none of them is actually working with us right now, even though they started doing some work and experiments for us. But then we realized that's just not the right type of profiles, and even like the role doesn't really make sense for us. In fact, I mean, so we don't believe this. We're gonna hire for this role in the near sort of 12 or even like 18 months. So and that's why I kind of became a strong proponent that okay, like I would say like when you meet a co-founder, there are like typically like these three stages, which is maybe like pre-business relationship, which is again like ideally you should have known the person for at least a year prior to starting the business. Then there is some dating stage, right? And this stage typically starts with sharing an idea you have about the business and some mild intention to keep discussing it with that person. Well, as inappropriate as it may sound, but similar to when dating another person, you never say, "Hey, do you wanna move to my house and do you wanna move together?" So normally it's not advisable to ask, "Hey, do you wanna be a co-founder?" And ideally, after sharing the idea, you want to have some period of dating where you can share some aspirations, share some ideas, and then you ask about the feedback and interest and entrepreneurship and things like that. But yeah, it's kind of really important again, like before you sort of make a move to kind of get to know the person a little bit better, and then finally, again, like marriage happens, and yeah, I guess like when you've already understood the strength and weaknesses of another person, you offer some kind of a deal. Ideally, first you offer it actually verbally, right? So to see the reaction of the person, ideally face to face, and then you basically work on that to finalize things and agree on a final deal to become co-founders. And it's funny, right? So like it's kind of sounds straightforward, right? So just three stages, which is again like pre-business relationship, dating, marriage. But unfortunately, I've seen so many people do it really, really badly. And to be honest, we've made also so many mistakes, and yeah, happy to share them with you as well.
Let's get into that. Tell us some of the mistakes you've made.
I guess some of them we've made ourselves, but some of them I've definitely seen my friends, founders of different businesses right now. So the first one is, I guess, getting business development people on board. And like a very common type of a co-founder available on the market is, in London at least, is an MBA graduate from Oxford, Cambridge, or LBS looking to join a startup to work on a business development type of things. And well, I guess while work and business for such people exists in at Series A, plus there is almost no work they can typically help with at the inception stage, right? So it's simply not the thing that they spend much time on at the business school, and at least in the UK and European business schools. And I guess to be transparent with such people at the dating stage, it's good to ask like, how exactly do you see helping this business grow? And also very important to watch for language they use. So if the person, I guess, starts with, I guess, hey, I'm going to help you understand the value proposition, pain points, risk mitigation, fundraising, this is just really vague stuff, unrelated to the goal, which is okay. We need to raise a very strong seed round, right, in 6 or 12 months. And what they're looking for is hey, the key challenge of the business before the seed round, a product, initial sales, and marketing. I have contacts at Bank X, Insurance Y, e-commerce company Z, and we'll work on quickly validating and in this proposition and closing the initial sales. Right. So basically, you're looking for the BD person to play the role of the so-called product marketing, sales, or strategic partnership lead with a clear focus on tangible deliverables. Some other mistakes we've made is that, well, almost made, is that getting co-founders who would like to help you raise capital. At least, again, I'm not sure, like in California, but in Europe and the UK, there are definitely lots of these profiles, which essentially like some BD people helping, at least saying they will help you raise capital, right? So I guess the Facebook inception story had some, I would say, similarities, but yeah, I've definitely seen many of these kind of BD people looking to help you fundraise. And also, like part-time commitments. This is a very, I guess, sensitive topic with many co-founders. And on the one hand, you really want all people to commit all the time to growing your baby, right? And also, many investors are likely to walk away from part-time co-founders immediately. But on the other hand, people are different and have other commitments, and people have to pay bills, and especially at the inception stage, this is quite important. And so, how do you go about this, right? And that's another sort of thing I've seen like people do quite badly, which is okay, you kind of try to pursue like a founder or co-founder saying you have to leave the job, you have to do it, otherwise it's not going to work, right? Whereas to be honest, I mean, I'm more like a proponent of a sort of more sort of agile maybe approach, which is, hey, like tell me like how much are you going to deliver, say kind of in the next months, 2 months, 3 months, how much time are we going to commit, and let's think about okay, like whether it makes sense for us, right? And even if you have say like a second job or some another commitment, then yeah, I mean let's think about it. But yeah, I wouldn't really just close the door immediately and say, hey, I mean, like either you join the company or you go to an investment bank. Yeah, that's quite common.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I think the all in or all out mentality, it leaves a lot on the table. I'm recording this podcast, taking a break from my full time job. I think my boss might not be super excited to hear that I'm working outside of work on something else, but it's also valuable for just my mental health and being a well rounded person to do things that aren't just working at a startup. So I think that's a really interesting challenge, and finding the right balance is certainly a challenge, but thanks for sharing that. Let's talk about roles. And so, next, I want to ask about how you decided what you and your co-founder would be doing. Do you guys kind of do you work together on the same sort of stuff? Is one of you taking a long-term role and the other one's taking a short-term role? How do you divvy up the responsibilities of running a company?
I think it's very important during the dating stage already to clearly understand the roles of people in the company. So an ideal scenario, I believe in, and what we definitely saw in the company is that there is a clear sort of understanding of what everyone is going to work on, and ideally it should be obviously yeah, complementary and also not really overlapping too much. So ideally, again, at the inception stage, so probably someone is gonna look after say sales and marketing, so it's normally CEO and the founder. So it synthesizes definitely myself. And there should be some, of course, engineering talent. Normally the CTO and the co-founder. So it's Dennis in our case. And again, like optional, what we've seen at least in software deep tech businesses is that there is some research talent. But again, as discussed, it's sometimes, well, oftentimes, yeah, at least needs to be taken with a great care.
So, with all of your engineering background, you're saying you're not the engineering talent on the team?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in terms of like the product methodology, I definitely know I'm the product owner. So
Uh-huh.
and at the moment I have I guess like three main KPIs and three main things I look after. So it's the first one is definitely product market fit, right? So I'm the product owner in the business. Then it's of course sales and key partnerships, and then it's making sure that we have the best people on the team, and so hiring and making sure we have the right advisors as well. But like I realized that, and we've had I think three different very senior salespeople in the organization, and most of them actually fail, even if they have really good understanding of the sales space, but they don't really know like understand the vision and the product. Can't really say about all the salespeople, of course, but I mean, it felt to me that again, like at an early stage business, the founder, the CEO, even if he's has technical background, in my case again like PhD in computer science, maths, physics, statistics, you have to essentially close the first deals yourself, right? And you need to do it in order to educate salespeople, to write a sales playbook, delegate, because otherwise it's going to be a mess. Lots of miscommunication between the sales team and the founder who's trying to get some alignment on what features product actually has, how we're going to sell them, what's the pricing model, etc., etc. So I'm a strong proponent that even if you are a computer science smart graduate from one of the top universities, I mean, you have to do sales yourself first, and at least maybe for definitely significant time after seed, even like Series A, look after sales and marketing.
For more on sales, look at our other podcasts. We have some great ones.
I've read so many things and have had so many advisors. I'm even like like right now writing a blog and actually a book to collect some of the insights I've had again like from doing sales from the technical point of view, right? So straight out of academia, trying to sell to again like big corporates, and
Mhm.
it's quite fascinating how much you learn, and yeah, it's a very sort of exciting space to for self development as well.
So, you come from this engineering background. How did you prepare yourself for maybe the sales side of things, but more in general, how did you prepare yourself for just the business side, running a business before you launched your startup?
Oh Jesus, I broke up with my girlfriend.
It's a good start.
Yeah, that was the first risk, right? So like, I saw, but no, joking. Yeah, just joking about this. Yeah, to be honest, I mean, like when I started the business, for me it was quite easy to do it because like I actually saw quite a lot of risk in terms of not actually doing it. So I had an offer from one of the biggest investment banks, and I declined it simply because I actually felt like, oh no, so I'm gonna end up, like working for an investment bank for the next 2 or 3 years, maybe even 5 years, and then it's gonna be, like much more difficult to start a business. And I really wanted to, like try to essentially solve this actual problem, as opposed to just working for someone doing some ambiguous and vague. So for me, the risk was actually really kind of not starting the business. So it was I would say fairly sort of risk-free decision to start a business again because coming from the background, so a statistical background, yeah, like whatever happens, I mean, so you're always going to be well and highly demanded by lots of interesting opportunities. But to be honest, also, I mean, I kind of come from very humble beginnings and been working on this for, I would say, working on my some of the personal and mental issues for quite a bit of time in my life. So I grew up in a very small village in Siberia, actually, and then spent some time in Germany, spent some time in the UK. But always, like, you have to, in a way, compete and fight for what you think is right. And that really helps to persevere, and especially in the business, when you have to again and again like compete with lots of things and fight with lots of but in lots of battles and troubleshoot lots of things, and yeah, that definitely helps. But to be honest, I mean, like, to be pragmatic again, like when you start a business, some things are really important, right? So like, I guess, for your mental wellness and
Mhm.
well-being, so definitely have a bit of cash in the bank is good, right? Have definitely people supporting you, like next to you, right? And make sure that again, like those people are gonna see a lot, right? They're gonna see the very bad side of you, all right? And make sure that yeah, they're gonna be fine with that, and they're prepared for it right now, and then they're gonna help you. But also again, like pragmatically think about, like backup plans.
Mm.
Yeah, so even if so you're on a mission and you have great vision for the business, but just again, like for mental well-being, there are going to be like lots of situations where things are going to be tough, and having like backup plans and is very important. Like, yeah, I like to say that, hey man, like in business you have lots of luck, but at the same time, luck, again, from the statistician's point of view, is probably just maximizing. It's like a strategy to maximize the number of successful outcomes at a given time, right? And just thinking about it and focusing on that is quite important.
So, in order to maximize your success, I'm sure you did some preparation for starting a company, for entering the business world. Were you doing a lot of reading? Were you asking questions online on Quora, Reddit? How did you get battle ready to start the company?
Yeah, like when you grow a business, many founders experience the problem of uncertainty. And definitely the one I saw is that for many, it's the first time they kick off and kickstart the business. And you simply don't know what's coming, right? You don't really know where you're going. And also, so it happens with many team members as well. And that's something to think about as well. So one of the, again, like sales directors we had, he used to say, Nicolai, we are new to this, so it's difficult to forecast. We don't really know like how to essentially give a 6 months or 12 months forecast. And to be honest, I have to say it's often bullshit, as you always have and can benchmark yourself and the company against other founders and companies. And yeah, I guess so. One of the ways how to do it is to essentially have a mentor, have an advisor, and people around you who've done it, who've seen it essentially work, and surrounding yourself with the right people is very important. And the reason it's important is because it helps you, in a way, set the right KPIs for yourself and benchmarking yourself against other founders, other CEOs in the space. And so I guess, like, I often like to ask again, like, what's going to make me a good leader, right? In 12 months, and 24 months, 36 months, and what KPIs should I have in the company, right? And that's very important to benchmark with mentors and advisors.
Yeah, it's hard to grow if you're not measuring things.
Yeah, for me it was really making sure that yeah, we have the great people around myself. So I was lucky enough to be surrounded by some of the best people, at least in Europe and the space, such as JP Rangaswamy, and who is former chief data officer of Deutsche Bank and chief scientist of Salesforce as well, and many others as well. And But yeah, I would say like making sure you have the right mentors, advisors, the team members you can constantly learn from is key. And yeah, also like asking about, okay, like what do you need to, where do you need to get to, where do you see my weaknesses are. This kind of like self-awareness piece is key, right? Is very important for self-development.
That's really interesting. When did you start to realize that you needed to do that? That you might have like deficiencies and that you can learn from, well, advisors, but when did you sort of really understand that, hey, there's places I'm lacking, I need to use advisors? And how was your experience with those advisors?
For me, it was a little bit easier because in academia, during a PhD,
Mm.
you have a supervisor, and that's essentially, well, the first essentially business mentor you have before starting the business. And there you kind of quickly understand again, like coming from a fairly sort of engineering sort of background, you clearly know where the gaps are and how to fill them, right? So and if you don't, right, so you ask your supervisor, you ask your peers to essentially help you out and with the direction, and that's how things happen. And then like from that sort of I realized that yeah, it's super important to surround yourself with people, smart people in the field you can learn from. And yeah, I used to go to maybe 10 or even 15 conferences per year to essentially like meet some of the greatest statisticians and machine learning scientists in the space, to simply like learn from them and also see about, okay, like learn about the space, learn about the gaps in the space, and what I can essentially learn from them about those gaps as well.
Yeah, it seems like it was more of a natural fit given that you come from an academic background.
Yeah, exactly. It happened naturally as well, that after I kind of like left Cambridge, I was like, hey man, I need a supervisor. Yeah, I definitely had some very good experience with different kinds of mentors and advisors during my academic career as well, and I really wanted to bring it to the business, and I felt it was quite natural to bring it to the business as well.
Are you still using advisors?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we are right now actually forming an advisory board, and yeah, bringing some of the, I guess, best people on board. Yeah, I can't really reveal all the names right now, but yeah, so one of them I already mentioned. So it's JP Rangaswamy, who's
Mhm.
a former chief data officer of Deutsche Bank and chief scientist of Salesforce. And yeah, bringing some really exciting people right now as well on board.
All right. So on the topic of, surrounding yourself with the best people, can you tell me at what point you started making first hires and what roles you were hiring for?
I think initially within probably every software business, you start with engineering hires, because yeah, I still kind of have to build the product. Otherwise, it would have been like weird had you tried to hire, I guess, like salespeople before see it or during see it, right?
Right. You're the one making the sales, right?
Exactly. I mean, to be fair, right? So I was actually, like the first lines of code were written actually by me. But then, of course, yeah, I stopped doing it, and yeah, right now I'm not actually getting involved in writing code. But yeah, definitely participating in all the product sessions,
Hmm.
sprint planning sessions, yeah, backlog refinement sessions, etc. But yeah, the first hires were engineers, and what actually helps, again, like coming from academic background, is like trying to get someone from your network. So people we originally got were actually from Cambridge and from other universities as well, and simply because I really knew and understood the space, and knew who to essentially talk to about potential candidates, potential opportunities. And yeah, this is where we got some people from. In terms of engineering, what helps, I guess, well, we have to talk about it as well. I guess outsourcing stuff, I mean, so this is quite inevitable, which is, again, you have to find someone who's going to, like just help you out for some time, but at some point may not be able to join the company, and you find with that, right? So you kind of know that, okay, like those people are going to be essentially helping, well, working on some of the bits of the product, which, again, like not really much of IP related. So you understand that, again, they can be delegated to engineers, etc. And yeah, so that's completely fine. But yeah, so first hires for engineers, I think 3 or 4 of them, most of them, again, like from connections, and some of them using some kind of other resources, like, again, like LinkedIn, like network, and referrals as well. Mhm.
So while we're on the topic of engineers, a lot, and this is a question I think everybody's asking. We've asked it several times during quarantine and lockdown when everyone's working from home. I assume you guys are using a remote team. Can you tell me about, your experience using remote teams and any advice you might have?
Yeah, we've actually become more productive when the entire situation happened. People are always on time right now, never miss a meeting. And like if meeting starts at 2 p.m., everyone is, yeah, maybe 1 minute before that is already on the call, right? Whereas when you're in the office, people say, okay, sorry, can I grab coffee? Can I grab some tea very quickly? and
Yeah.
yeah, you often have, like meeting eventually starts like 10 minutes late. So we've definitely seen actually increased productivity initially. Having said that, we try to incorporate lots of elements to our culture which allow us to replace some of the elements again like before the entire situation started, such as again like right now again like you can't really read maybe body language, you can't really understand the energy level of different people, and we try to like introduce some of the, I guess, some of the measures, such as okay, we do stand ups every actually second day. We don't do them every day because of Zoom fatigue. And so again, like this is one of the things we saw is that like, at some point people start, well, I guess the productivity starts to deteriorate because again, like every day you have to report on some single thing you did yesterday, and we try to like extend this to maybe like every other day, like for stand-ups. Then we try to introduce this is called peer program, so that everyone has a kind of peer, kind of buddy they can talk to. That helps a lot. And then also again, like we're organizing some kind of offsites, some social activities as well to again like make sure that everyone is connected and part of the team. So the main challenge is onboarding. To be honest, I haven't. We are still like figuring it out, and I guess yeah, deciding on the best strategy for us. Like because before the entire situation started, there were so many ways how you can talk more about the company, about the vision, mission, etc., and get people easily excited about it because they're kind of with you in the same room. You do some whiteboarding, you tell them different stories, and that's easier. Right now, again, like it's has become a little bit tricky, and that's definitely a challenge for us. And yeah, as of course we all understand, is that hiring is primarily about selling, right? So selling the vision to potential candidates, and how to essentially make sure that everyone is aligned on it, aligned on the vision, mission, but when they've never seen anyone else on the team. To be honest, we've made some mistakes. Again, like one of the colleagues we hired immediately after the entire situation started, and unfortunately, about maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, we decided that okay, perhaps that's not the best hire we've made, and we had to like change things quite quickly. And the reason I think is that we couldn't really like we could have like onboard people a little bit better, so make them really feel that okay, they're part of the kind of this rocket ship, and we have this North Star, and yeah, so we are on a very sort of exciting journey. So really, like I guess communicating the energy, transmitting the energy to employees remotely is key, and we still kind of figuring out the best strategy to do it actually.
It's certainly a challenge. Speaking of challenges that you are going through, can you tell me about some of the key product decisions that you had to make early on?
I think like one of the main challenges for us was the alignment on the definition of done with our target customers, and we see it happening with many founders and many companies right now. As a result, founders end up overpromising and then under-delivering without even realizing it, because I guess the axis of for measuring success are different for founders and customers, and this happens a lot, I guess, with egoistic developers and narcissists. Like, hey, we are building like rocket ship. Of course, everyone is gonna fucking love it, right? And at Synthesize, we saw that with one of our early partners, again, like one of the largest insurance companies in Europe. And key differentiators of our software are the quality of data we provide, and privacy guarantees. And we measured the quality using some statistical metrics, some very sophisticated, advanced statistical metrics. And we measure the privacy using advanced techniques from the information security theory as well. And of course, that's not how the client measured the quality of data. And of course, we didn't discuss it before shipping the software to them. And the response from the client was like, "Hey, I mean, the data is just not the same, right?" I was like, "Well, I mean, it's not meant to be the same, right? Statistical metrics are similar, right?" So one of the subsequent product decisions we made was that in our success criteria, we really kind of try to write down in a measurable way what success looks like for both of us, and also quite importantly, assign a dollar value to the success criteria. So something we have started doing only recently, but again, like making sure that not only we achieve this kind of metrics, whether it's statistical metrics, data metrics, whatever other metrics you might think of, but also there is a clear sort of dollar value associated with that metric. And I guess that sort of simple trick allows you to make sure that everyone is aligned, everyone working to make sure this is going to be successful, right? Because if you just say, hey, I mean, like our success criteria is that the software is going to be easy to deploy, easy to use, and it's going to work, right? That's not a success criteria, right? So that's just a standard description of the software. But you really need to think about again how the business again either generate more revenue or save some costs or something else, but really kind of assign some dollar value to that. And this is something we kind of try to think about again, like the impact of having our product, right? And really kind of even like in terms of our roadmap, incorporate some of these measurements into the product roadmap as well.
Interesting. That's fascinating stuff. I'm not going to expand on it, but I could because we don't have too much time. What are some of the key takeaways that you've learned on your entrepreneurial journey so far?
Lots of things, actually. Many things I've learned, and it's just been such a fascinating journey. I probably got a degree and again like an MBA from again one of the top universities, and yeah, I learned how to become a really good sort of HR as well, and think about operations and product decisions as well, right? But in terms of like some of the key learnings is that I guess when working with customers, emotions are quite important, and really kind of this emotional connection with the customer in B2B is actually much stronger than in B2C. And that was the learning for me because I always thought that, okay, hey, I mean, if you build the product and it gives you the value, you have to buy it, right? I mean, so why did you buy it? But the thing is that, of course, I mean, it's about how you present it, it's how you communicate the benefits as opposed to the features of the product. And again, for me, it was, okay, hey, I mean, like, it has such exciting features, amazing technical stack. You should definitely buy it. And that was quite a big learning for me. Then also, like micromanagement. I think micromanagement may kill a growing stage, well, a late stage company. It's actually key for early stage companies. Really think about everyone in the team, making sure that you're not only the boss, but you're the friend, and they can trust you and they can rely on you in difficult situations, and you're just gonna do it, right? And that's quite such a sort of emotional boost as well when you understand that, hey, I mean, like these are your friends, right? So this is kind of your family, really. And I think there is a luxury of an early stage company, which is, okay, you still have time to spend with the people individually, and you should do it, right? Because again, like, yeah, we are very ambitious, right? And those people are going to stay with us for quite a while, and they're going to essentially become heads of departments. They're going to grow into C-level executives. So you have to really kind of think about them as your friends and treat them as your friends, probably some of the best friends you've had. That's definitely been one of the important learnings for me as well.
Awesome. Those are some great takeaways. My only comment is the world would probably make a lot more sense if everybody was statisticians and evaluating things based on logic and reason and emotion wasn't a part of it. Okay, well, thanks, Nikolai. Before we get out of here, what's the best way for our listeners to reach you?
Definitely reach out on LinkedIn or write me at Nicolai, Nicolai at synthesize.io. And yeah, if you have any questions or would like to see the product, super excited to show it to you. And
Okay. Well, thanks, Nikolai. We're going to end the podcast there. If you liked our show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a rating. Thanks, Nikolai, for joining us today. Let's have you back on here soon to talk about all the things you guys are developing.
thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.